Hey everybody, it's Lon Simon. We're going to be doing an installation video today. This is going to go up on the Extras channel, then I'll have a regular review that's a little bit more concise. This is the Akitio node, and there's an affiliate link in the description. And this thing almost is as big as a PC, but what it's designed to do is allow you to use a GPU, a real GPU, with your laptop that might not have one. We are going to install a GPU into this huge case. Oh, yes, David Roberts said I need to do my usual disclaimer here. I'm going to be reading off things from the chat room here in case you're watching this on a recording. So I paid for this with my own funds. All the opinions you're about to hear in this stream are my own, and nobody is paying for this review or reviewing this content before it's posted, and they can't because we're doing it live. So we do have this thing here. This is the Akitio node. This is where we'll be installing the GPU. We're going to be first using this Lenovo laptop. This is the Yoga 720, and I reviewed this one the other day, and this is on loan. So when I'm done with this thing, I'm going to send it back to them. And the reason why we're using this is I think this is a really good test case here for how this will work, because there is a Thunderbolt port on the side of this one, but it has no GPU of its own. So we'll be able to see if this thing is actually going to work. And we'll be hooking this thing up in a little bit. I have like no room on this desk. This is like a real science experiment. And then a couple of months ago, we did a thing with a PC build, and I had a whole bunch of GPUs on the desk. So PNY sent this to the show free of charge, and I use this from time to time when we do PC things. And this is a great time to do this. So we got a 1070 GPU, and the reason why this case is so big is because it can accommodate things like this. Now there's a website that a lot of you told me about called eGPU.io, and they actually, after I bought this, I went there, but they said this Akitio node is kind of like the best one out there at the moment. It is very utilitarian, so it does require a little bit of placement because it is so large, and it doesn't really come apart that easily either. So let's get this thing pulled out here, and I'll show you what is in this thing. So let's pull it out. There we go. So inside we have a Thunderbolt 3 controller, and I should mention that if you're going to do a GPU on your laptop, you need to have a Thunderbolt connector for this to work, because you need that bandwidth. And Thunderbolt's maximum transfer rate is like 40 gigabits per second. However, not all Thunderbolt ports are the same, and so we may not see the performance on this one that we might see on some other devices. So we'll be testing out this one first. We'll see how long it takes. So the first thing I'm going to do is just show you the rest of what we got in here. So there is a, let me switch over here. There is a 400-watt power supply in here, and that's enough to cover what you need for a GPU. You've got the PCI Express power connectors here, so if you have a GPU that requires external power like the one we have, that should work. You got your X16 slot in here, so that will fit that GPU. And again, the reason why this case is so big is that you need to have it actively cooling itself. There's a big fan on here. There's actually a fan, at least there's a hole for a fan on the side here. I guess there's another fan oh, here it is. So on the power supply here on the other side. So you've got a lot of cooling on here, and you need this big of a case to fit the GPU in it. So that is why you don't see a lot of GPUs on tiny laptops like this. It just can't fit, and if they did fit something in there, they wouldn't work all that great. So we'll then be taking out the GPU here. So let's get this thing installed. What's nice about this is that it is a toolless kit, so you don't need to have anything like a screwdriver necessary to get everything put together here. So I'm just going to unscrew this. Be taking this 1070, this GTX 1070, and sticking in here. Now my understanding is that the Windows side of things is a lot simpler than it is on the other side of the equation with the Mac. So the Mac might take us a little, oh great, the Mac might take us a little bit longer to get working here. So we'll do the PC first, and I already lost my screw in here. All right, there we go. And somebody wants to know if I could try a quad HDMI capture card in here. I would if I had one. However, I believe this thing will basically meld any PCI Express card to your laptop. So theoretically, that should work. Get this going here. And let's see. Yeah, so Care O'Mine makes a good point about the PCI Express lanes on these things. And yeah, I don't expect to get the same performance we did on the desktop when we had this installed on that. And actually, this is going to be a really good comparative because we have all the benchmark figures when we did that GPU video back before the holidays. So I'll have that data that I can refer to when we run our benchmarks on it. I think the first thing I'll do is run one of the benchmarks if we get this thing working quickly. And I think what I'm also going to do while I am getting all this going here is also download the drivers for the card, because we need to do that. So let's see, NVIDIA GeForce drivers, get that going. So we've got power connected, the card is installed. So now we're going to take out a few more cables here. And we have in the box are some cable ties, because they probably consider people who are serious about this stuff, they want to keep their cables organized, unlike me. With the power cable here, there's some documentation. I think they have some stickers in the box too, so you can show how happy you are with them. So we'll unwrap this. This is the Thunderbolt cable. So all of the data for this powerful GPU is going to be passed through this little cable here. That is how it works. And Jay Chen makes a good point. Yeah, we'll be plugging a monitor directly into this. So I guess there is, and I was reading up about this a little bit, and I guess there is a way that you can channel the display back to the laptop's main display, but you lose a lot of performance in that process. So we're going to be connecting up directly to the back of this when we get it all installed. So very short cable. These tend to be a little short because you can't do too much data bandwidth on longer cables. All right, so we'll plug that into the Thunderbolt port on the side of the laptop here. And I need to make, of course it's on the wrong side, but let me rearrange it again here. Sorry everybody, that was a waste of time. All right, so now I'll plug this in over here. Now I think what I'm going to do actually is maybe boot up the device here before we plug it into the computer. So let's flick the switch on this and see what happens. Where'd the switch go? There it is, okay. All right, so it's powered up. We have no smoke yet, so that's a good thing. And now what I want to do is show you what the computer says when I plug it in. So let me see if I can get that angled that way. And I'm just going to open the folder there. And I'll get the camera zoomed in for you so you can see what the screen says when it goes through. Now you can see why I try to edit so much when I do a video, because it takes often a long time to get everything situated in the way you want it to be situated in. So let's get that organized there. All right. Yes, no smoke, but we still have to plug it into the computer. So here we go. I'm attaching the Thunderbolt cable to the Thunderbolt port. There we go. All right, we're connected. And let's see what happens here. I'll zoom out. So the fans are definitely kicking on now. So that's a good sign. And then the computer is telling me, let me zoom back in here. I should have got another camera out today. The computer is telling me the Thunderbolt devices were attached. I have to approve them. So I'll say OK. And this is a standard thing that happens with Thunderbolt connections, is that. So now we're seeing a message here about connecting the Akitio node. And we're going to say connect all the time. And I'll hit OK here. The device manager real quick and see if we can see what's going on here. So let's go properties. Device manager. Okay, so it doesn't have any drivers yet, but that's okay because we're going to install the driver package that I just downloaded on here. So let's do that real quick. Oops. And by the way, Jay, you'll appreciate this. I've been using the little external PNY drive here. So one of the tricks that I have, because I review so many PCs, is that I put all my Steam stuff and a bunch of other things on this little, you probably can't see it now, let me switch back, onto this little SSD. This is 480 gigabytes. It's quick enough to do all that stuff, so I don't have to keep reinstalling games every time I put things in, and that's been really helpful. All right, so we're just going to let the drivers go and see what happens there. So far so good, everybody. We haven't blown up the computer yet. The good news is that my device manager now is reporting, let's zoom in here, a GTX, get in a little bit closer. Sorry for the crappy camera work, everybody. Oh no, runtime error. All right, hopefully, well, it is reporting that we have an NVIDIA GTX 1070 installed now. Let me get that over there. And it wants me to restart the computer. So let's restart the computer real quick and we will see what happens next here. Good, this is a good sign. I've got video now. You'll see this on, let me pull up camera 4. Oh, we lost it. We'll probably get it back here in a second. All right, so I'm going to just log into the computer here. Yeah, they're good. We're good. We got video. Now, it might look a little washed out because I have it hooked up through this crazy scaler and all this other stuff, but there you go. So this is coming out now of the eGPU. So that's a good sign. All right, so let's go over to Device Manager. And I think what I'm going to do is try to reinstall those NVIDIA drivers because I'm not seeing all the stuff in my thing here. So the 1070 now is showing up as a device, so that's a good sign. So what I want to do now, though, is just go back to my downloads folder and just reinstall that, just to be safe here. So let's just reinstall the whole thing. And we'll come back and see where it goes. Dillier Daylan notes that Thunderbolt 1 also supports external GPUs. That's absolutely correct. In fact, what's cool, let me show you my little adapter here. So I have the MacBook Pro adapter. So this is the USB Type-C Thunderbolt connector. The USB Type-C connector version has an adapter here to go to the old type, and I can just plug this into the back of this unit and use it with my Thunderbolt 1 and 2 devices. So that should work. Once we get everything working on the little MacBook down there, I might try that as one of the things that I investigate here. So I'm just going to get the, I think I'll skip the GeForce Experience for now. I think what I'm going to do, I think I can just turn off the Intel GPU through here, or the Intel, yeah, so let's just go over to high performance NVIDIA processor and apply that. And what's funny, so it looks like we must be routing the video back through the Thunderbolt cable because that did not disable the screen, the on-screen thing here. So I think what I'm going to do is just try out the 3D Mark test first, and we'll just see what happens. Now, I know how slow it will run on the Intel graphics, so this will be a good indicator of how this thing is going to perform. So let's go load up a little 3D Mark action here. I like the 3D Mark stuff. They do a nice job on this. And we'll launch that. It's going to take a minute to install everything. And let's just run Time Spy. What the heck, right, everybody? That's the killer test. That's the DirectX 12 test. And I'm going to have it run the demo also so we can just see how it all works. So let's go cut over to camera 4 and let that load up. Well, it looks like it's running pretty smoothly here. So this would not run like this if we were using the internal GPU for sure. So this is pretty good. Now, usually I see the frame rate at the bottom, but I think it runs the demo first, and then it kind of runs through its tests with the thing below. But this is smooth. I mean, I don't know if it's 60 frames per second, but this is a really tough test for most GPUs, so this looks pretty good, I must say. And while it's running here, I'll cut back to my other camera. Sorry, oops, wrong button, camera 2. So you can see here it's running on the display, and then we're getting it on here. And of course, I'm splitting this and shooting it back to the TriCaster so you can see what this is here. All right, our score is 3401, which is much better than this thing would have without the GPU plugged into it. And I tested this very same GPU on a i3 desktop machine not too long ago. Now, on the i3 build that we had, we got a score of 4,818. Now, that was an i3 desktop machine, so full power on the CPU and everything. We got about, and the graphics scores should be consistent if we're getting the full amount of bandwidth on here. So I don't have this in a way I can pull it up on screen at the moment, but we had 38 frames per second on the i3 build. Let me go back to our results here. On here, we're 10 frames per second lower at 27. On graphics 2, we had 33.9 frames per second on the desktop machine, same exact GPU. On this one, we have 24 frames per second. And the CPU test on the desktop i3 was 7.75 frames per second. This one was 5.43. So definitely a slight reduction in performance, although, again, my theory is that because it is piping video back to the laptop, that could be a contributing factor here. Only show on 2. All right, good. So now we've got the laptop is off and the main display is the only thing on. So let's see if that gives us a performance difference here. I think this is doing better than it was before, because if I'm not mistaken, we were getting about 20 or so frames per second, and now we're seeing about 33 or so. So I think we are seeing better performance now that the internal display is disabled. All right, so here's our test, and it is better. Okay, so if I go back to the TimeSpy test from when we ran this on the i3 computer, we have a score of 4,818. However, frame rate is what we're looking at here. So we want to see if the bandwidth of the graphics card is functional. And the i3 computer had 38 frames per second. On test 1, we're seeing 34. Test 2 was 33 on the i3 desktop computer. Same exact GPU that we have in here. So this GPU is the exact one I used on that i3 build. And we're getting scores here of 31 frames per second versus 33. So this is like really pushing as close as it did on the main desktop computer with an external GPU. So that is really cool. So now we're going off the GeForce recommended settings here, and we're doing kind of all over the place. But that's usually the case with this game. So we can see how this is running, but much better, of course, than it would on its own without a GPU built in. So we're seeing 39 frames per second. And I'm going to run that benchmark, also the benchmarking that they have here too, so we can see how that goes. And this game is one of those games that really pushes both sides of the equation, the CPU and the GPU. So that will have an impact here. I don't usually drive this bad in person, by the way, in case you're wondering. One of the things that impresses me about this game is the detail, on everything. The city, even the flight stuff. It's just pretty amazing what they did here. And this game's like still relevant this far out. It's pretty crazy. All right, so let's see. I'm going to just hop out of here. I like to, there we go. I like to blow myself up and then hop out at the hospital where it's better lighting. Good as new. Look at that. Like it never happened. So we'll pop out over here. Yeah, so we're seeing good frame rates here. This is 30 frames per second, and this is, again, the GeForce Experience settings, so you could tweak it. But I wanted to put this, video memory exceeded. Well, that's weird. Well, that's very interesting, isn't it? Let's take a look at that. Let's go over to the settings here. This card has like 8 gigs of RAM on it, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's got 8 gigs. Why would it say it's exceeded? Oops. All right, so let's run the benchmark here, see how we do on that. This is the test that I like. I think this is the one that runs the longest. So you have this bridge thing, and then the airplane comes, and it follows the airplane through. And I'll have to check and just see if it's an apples to apples on the settings. I think what I did on the GPU shootout was I had the same settings for every card to see what the incremental increase was. So I may want to set this card up. I have to go back to that video and look for it, but But you would never get this kind of frame rate on this laptop without the GPU for sure. So this is pretty good. And here's the setup, everybody, in case you're wondering. So this little tiny laptop with this big heavy case, which weighs more than the laptop does, is powering all of this. William's wondering if the SSD is an M2. I don't believe so. I did a review of it. So if you go and look for a PNY SSD on my channel, you can see a full review of it and get the performance on it. It's working well for me for this kind of stuff. Now these are with the recommended settings. So the image looks a lot better, and it's still, this game is like super fast. And it still looks great. It looks better actually, but it's still running really fast here. You can see the frame rate in the upper left-hand corner. So that's super good. Very nice. And you can do your little maneuver here with the, was it Command E? Or was it R maybe? I forgot what button it was to push. Let's see, it's the F. I mean, F, there we go, so there we go. You knocked the guy out there, okay. Pretty cool, good stuff. That is working really nicely. So I'm impressed with this. I'm really surprised. I mean, you know, again, we're running off of a, so this laptop is about $800, the one that they let us borrow, but it has the Thunderbolt port, and that is how this whole thing works. We've got this hooked up via Thunderbolt, and you're getting, you know, really fast graphics on here. Really good stuff.
This channel is brought to you by my Patreon supporters, including gold level supporters Mark Bollinger, Brian Miller, Mr. Morse, and Cody Falk. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to lon.tv/Patreon to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit lon.tv/S.